Hi, I'm Jane. I'm political science living in northern Minnesota. My profession is teaching, and I also am a youth counselor. But my side job is political analysis, especially foreign policy. I have a podcast weekly on YouTube called Political Gravity with 5 West Coast hosts. Anyways, I want to talk about Donald Trump today. Donald Trump has started his administration approximately um, a month and a half ago, and there's certain parallel personality traits that I see in his decisions to form policy and also execute policy. The one thing I noticed that's very peculiar is he's making enemies out of friends. He's finding places in the world to assert his authority that is unnecessary. For example, I live an hour from Canada. Why is he attacking Canada? Why is he imposing tariffs on Canada? It's not that they haven't pulled any stunts against America. They're not persecuting us in any ways. It's only hurting us and Canada. Both ways it's hurting us. Now, a smaller city or domain in Manitoba has signed a declaration to not buy any more American liquor. And Rand Paul said that that is going to affect his Kentucky bourbon industry in his own state. In other words, imposing high tariffs on Canada is going to hurt Americans. Also, there's certain industrial and automobile plants in Kentucky that Rand Paul mentioned that's going to be hurt because they're dependent on Canadian steel. We're also in a collaborative setting with them as far as reopening some of the oil pipelines that go from Canada to the US. They could become a little more brazen about that based on the way that Trump has been treating them. It just doesn't make sense. They're not an enemy. They're not a threat. And Trump can't go on a world globe and cherry pick which countries he wants to be included in ours and merged with ours. Canada is a sovereign state that is the ultimate authority is the King of England. The royal family of England and the Catholic Church, they're the two biggest landowners on earth. Do you think that the royal family is just going to surrender the entire provinces and territory of Canada just so Donald Trump can have Canada as a 51st state? I want to know who his political advisors are within the dark side of his cabinet who are suggesting this, or is he just making it up and deciding on his own, like picking at a map like a eighth, like probably like an 8-year-old, not even an eighth grader, because he doesn't understand sovereign states and the purpose of that. I'm going to jump back to Canada soon, but I'm going to go into Mexico now and discuss that. Mexico is a neighbor in the south. Most of the reason Trump is trying to persecute them is because of the drug trade and the illegal immigrants. So he's taking something he's angry about and punishing Mexico economically, which affects us. So the president of Mexico turned over 29 warlords they were drug lords over to America in the last week. I'm losing my voice today. Trump tried to clean it up by telling the president, we want your top drug dealers, and then we'll make a deal with you. So she handed them over. They caught him. They turned him in. And then he was still threatening Mexico. The last 2 weeks, he's been wavering between tariffs, no tariffs, a 30-day hold, a 30-day breach, and then going back and forth. I don't know if this is his idea of flexing his powers or trying to make him look like a strong man. We do need more border security, and even as a Democrat, I agree with that. I'm not necessarily a party person anymore, but I have some ideas about what I want our country to do as far as continue certain policies. I think Mexico is a friend of ours, and a lot of Americans vacation down there. And there's thousands of Americans who go to Cabo San Lucas and Mazatlan, and they go all over Mexican all year. The tourist industry is huge. It's cheap there, and people enjoy their vacations. There are some imminent dangers because of drug trade, but overall, in certain areas, Americans enjoy it there. I don't think making Mexico an enemy is really going to help. It's okay to tighten security barriers and try to tighten up the border. The third thing I want to talk about, I was going to make this a longer video, but I am having some voice problems. The third thing I want to talk about is Americans themselves. It seems to me by ominously slashing the federal budget and just cross-cutting certain departments, Donald Trump is really hurting Americans themselves. He cut over 15,000 jobs in the VA sector, the Veterans Administration. It doesn't, all jobs might be federal. They were connected to federal jobs. They were support places that were tied into the feds. My son is a veteran, and I've seen veterans on the air on social media complain. It was slash and burn. It was not methodical. And even this week in Congress, I mean, not Congress, in the courts, there was a person that was eliminated from the federal payroll that was put back in by the Justice Department, a high-ranking federal civil servant, because Donald Trump did it wrong. I don't have the facts in front of me, but I'll get them for my show tonight. Somebody that Trump removed arbitrarily through Elon Musk was reinstated in office. And that happened at Yellowstone Park too. 15 of the employees that were eliminated and got a letter saying goodbye, they were reinstated later. So doing this in a mass hurry with no rhyme or reason, they're attacking American citizens who are established and have a federal job. That means if they're fired, and some of these people are in small towns and remote places like Utah. There was one park there that got a lot of cuts. These people have to relocate. They have to start their lives all over again because a stable federal job they have is no longer existent. And that's just, it's going to be a burden on the DC area as well. Now, I want to jump in. I'm making some comments, and I will try to look up the federal worker that was reinstated. I want to make my last comments about the Ukraine and Russia. The Ukraine, just think about it for a minute, okay? The Ukraine is a huge country sandwiched between Europe and Russia. There's a long history that I've already covered on my other radio shows. However, Zelensky has stood up to Russia over the last 3 years, and Russia has not won the war. In fact, the Ukrainians have entered Russian territory and taken over strongholds right over the border. Now, because of Trump's behavior, Putin has been bombing the crap out of Ukraine in the last 3 weeks. I think About a week ago, it was 259 bombs. They just broke down an oil refinery with more bombs and threatened the people of that town. They're killing more and more rapidly because Russia's trying to overtake the country before a peace agreement has been made. And Trump is trying to force the Ukraine to cede some of their territory to Russia without having Ukraine stand on their own ground and receive any benefits from this 3 long years struggle. So I can understand Zelensky's point of view. Zelensky has ties to Europe, and France and Germany has made him loans. There's also been resources diverted between Europe and the Ukraine, and I believe that Germany and Russia ended their agreement on natural gas a couple of years ago. So Europe has pretty much putting sanctions on Russia until the war is over. My point of the story is that you can't just barge into office and end a 3-year war on immediate terms in a third party that is not technically involved with the war. Yes, we've been funding the Ukraine with war, but they're going to find their own way. You can't just go in there also again and cherry pick what resources you want as an American president. He kept calling rare earth raw earth in an interview. He's being coached, but not coached good enough because a lot of his speeches and press conferences make absolutely no sense. And every day he changes his mind about what his strategy is. So the Ukraine has had a solid plan to join the European Union, and they have a history going back of struggle way back to World War II and many in the 90s. In 1992, the Ukraine voted. 93% of their people voted for independence, and they stuck with that plan. But there was one leader, Yanukovych, I think his name was, that wanted to, he was a Russian stronghold and a president. And he argued with another guy, and there was a revolution in 2003 called the Orange Revolution that changed things up again. So yes, Ukrainians are in for a historical struggle, but right now nobody's winning. Russia's not winning, and Ukraine's not winning, and everybody's losing lives and hardware. I'm going to make a more articulate speech tomorrow night. I hope you tune into my channel more often.